There's a side of female nature most men are either too afraid to acknowledge, too naive to notice, or too blind to see. Today, we're going to expose the uncomfortable truths, not to shame women, but to wake up men who are still living in fantasy. This is about awareness, not bitterness. And once you see these truths, you can never unsee them. Hypergamy is one of the most misunderstood yet foundational aspects of female nature that many men still ignore or deny. It's the natural, biological instinct for women to seek the best possible mate available to them, socially, emotionally, financially, and genetically. This drive is not something taught by society or developed from bad experiences. It is hardwired. Throughout human history, women have always had more to lose when choosing a mate. Pregnancy, child rearing, and long-term survival, so their instincts have evolved to favor security, strength, and status in a partner. In today's world, this plays out in ways many men fail to see. You might be a good guy, loyal, consistent, even loving, but if you're not growing, improving, or maintaining your value as a man, that doesn't guarantee her loyalty. A man's value must be demonstrated continuously, not just once. Hypergamy doesn't reward past effort. It responds to present and perceived potential. This is why you'll see women lose interest in a man the moment he becomes stagnant, stops chasing his purpose, or starts relying on her for emotional validation. It's not always about someone better walking in sometimes. It's just about the current man falling off his pedestal by his own inaction. This truth shatters the fantasy of unconditional love. Many men operate under the belief that if they're good enough, if they treat her right, if they're always available and never mess up, she'll stay forever. But the reality is that a woman's attraction is tied to how she perceives your status and direction. If she senses that another man has more ambition, more confidence, more social proof, or simply better leadership energy, she may start emotionally detach. This isn't cruel, it's nature. Hypergamy pushes women to align with what they perceive as the best option for their future and security, and sometimes even excitement. And here's where many men get trapped. They confuse comfort with security. A woman might stay with a man who provides comfort, but she becomes emotionally drawn to the man who makes her feel safe in his ambition, leadership, and masculine energy. If you become too comfortable, predictable, or overly available, she may start to see you as safe but uninspiring. Hypergamy doesn't just look for wealth or looks, it seeks strength, direction, and dominance in one's purpose. It's about upward mobility. And in a world where women now have access to more men than ever before, thanks to social media and dating apps, that hypergamous instinct is no longer restricted by geography or social circles. She can compare and choose, so if you're slipping, or if you assume that love is enough to keep her, you're playing a very dangerous game. Hypergamy doesn't mean women are evil. It means they are selective. And selection is based on perception. The moment a woman perceives that she could do better, or that you've stopped being the man she admired, her attraction starts to decay. It's not always instant, and sometimes it's subconscious, but it happens. This is why self-improvement isn't a luxury for men, it's survival. It's why men must stay on their grind, continue to evolve, and never get comfortable. Because once you do, hypergamy doesn't pause. It just starts looking elsewhere. Women, from a very early age, begin to understand the power of social dynamics in a way that most men don't. While boys are often taught to confront issues directly, through action, conflict, or assertion, girls tend to develop a more nuanced, indirect way of influencing outcomes. This isn't accidental. It's an adaptive strategy rooted in survival. In environments where physical strength wasn't an option, women developed the ability to navigate social structures using emotional intelligence, subtle communication, and psychological leverage. Over time, this ability becomes refined, and many women learn how to use it to their advantage, often without even being consciously aware of it. Social manipulation doesn't always look like something malicious or evil. It can appear as charm, passive aggression, strategic vulnerability, or emotional withdrawal. A woman might not raise her voice or become physically aggressive, but she can make you feel guilty without saying much. She might get what she wants not by demanding it, but by suggesting it in a way that makes you feel like it was your idea. She can create tension in a room with a single glance, withdraw affection to make a point, or escalate a conflict just enough to get a reaction, then play the victim when that reaction comes. This kind of manipulation is subtle, refined, and often undetectable to the average man who has not learned to recognize these psychological games. One of the most common tools in this arsenal is emotional framing. A woman might reframe a situation in such a way that you begin to question your own intentions, your own memory, or your own logic. This is often referred to as gaslighting, and it's one of the most disorienting experiences a man can face in a relationship. Suddenly, you're apologizing for things you didn't do, taking responsibility for her emotions, and walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. You might find yourself in a situation where your logic is dismissed as cold or unfeeling, while her emotions are elevated as the ultimate truth. And if you push back, you're accused of being insensitive or toxic. The playing field becomes uneven, and you don't even realize the rules have changed. This doesn't mean all women are master manipulators in a malicious sense, but the truth is, many have mastered emotional influence in the same way a man might master physical skill or financial strategy. It's their strength, and they know how to use it. Whether it's playing innocent to avoid accountability, using tears to shift the mood, or strategically withholding affection or sex to create leverage, these actions are not random. They are part of a learned and often subconscious toolkit for control. The scary part is, men who don't understand this dynamic become easy targets, not necessarily for malicious women, but for women who instinctively seek control in situations where they feel vulnerable or insecure. Many men ignore this truth because they've been conditioned to believe that women are always nurturing, emotionally honest, and less capable of manipulation than men. Society reinforces this image constantly, through movies, media, and even educational systems that paint male assertiveness as aggressive, while female emotional manipulation is often seen as harmless or even empowering. But manipulation isn't defined by who does it. It's defined by intent and impact. And when a man is unaware of how manipulation plays out, he will find himself emotionally drained, constantly confused, and endlessly trying to prove himself in a relationship that operates on shifting emotional ground. Another form of manipulation that often goes unnoticed is the use of comparison. A woman might not openly insult you, but she'll mention how her ex used to do something without her asking, or how her friend's boyfriend plans surprise dates or makes more money. These aren't random comments. They're subtle nudges to change your behavior through emotional pressure. Instead of communicating directly, she plants the seed of inadequacy, hoping it will grow into action. If you fall for this pattern, you'll start molding yourself into whatever she desires, not out of leadership, but out of fear of losing her approval. You stop leading and start reacting, which is exactly where manipulation thrives. Women are also highly skilled at reading social cues, micro-expressions, tone shifts, body language. They often know how you're feeling before you do, and once they identify your insecurities, they can use them, whether consciously or unconsciously, to guide the dynamic in their favor. That doesn't always mean she's trying to harm you, but it does mean that if you're not self-aware, you're at her mercy. She might push boundaries to test your strength, play the victim to avoid accountability, or flatter your ego when she needs something. If you can't recognize these patterns, you'll confuse manipulation with affection and emotional control with emotional connection. Ultimately, a woman's ability to socially manipulate isn't inherently evil, it's powerful. But power in the hands of someone who isn't held accountable becomes dangerous. And the biggest mistake men make is assuming that manipulation only exists in extreme or obvious cases. The truth is, it exists in everyday moments, in subtle words, in quiet emotional shifts. And if you don't see it, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means you're not paying attention. Men often assume that women love in the same way they do, fully, loyally, and without condition. This belief is not only misleading but also emotionally dangerous. Men tend to love idealistically. Once a man is emotionally attached to a woman, especially one he truly admires, he often becomes loyal to the image he has of her in his mind. That loyalty remains even when she no longer treats him the same, even when the relationship begins to deteriorate. A man will hold on, believing that the love they built means permanence, but female love is fundamentally different. It is not idealistic. It is opportunistic. It is based heavily on the conditions of the moment, how she feels, how you're performing as a man, and how your current value stacks up to what she believes she deserves. This doesn't mean women are incapable of love or that their love is shallow, but it does mean their love is more conditional, more responsive to change, and far more tied to perception than most men realize. A woman may love you deeply today, but if you lose your edge, your purpose, or your drive tomorrow, that emotional connection can begin to weaken. Women are biologically wired to seek safety, direction, and leadership from their man. When those elements begin to fade, so does her sense of security, and with it her emotional bond. It's not that she's heartless. It's that her love isn't rooted in sentimentality alone. It's rooted in how you show up every day as a man. Men often confuse consistency with complacency. They think, I'm here, I'm loyal, I'm not cheating. That should be enough. But for many women, it's not. Emotional stimulation, growth, and the feeling of being led by a strong, grounded man are essential to sustaining attraction. Women need to feel something. They need to feel like they're part of a journey that's going somewhere. The moment that sense fades, her emotional investment begins to shift. It may not happen overnight, but slowly she'll begin to pull away. Her texts get shorter, her tone gets colder, her enthusiasm starts to dim, and the man, unaware of how female love truly operates, begins chasing the ghost of who she used to be. Another truth men overlook is that women often confuse love with attraction. She may say she loves you, but what she really means is, I love how I feel around you right now. And when that feeling disappears, so does the love. This is why some women can move on quickly after a breakup. Not because they never loved you, but because their emotional attachment was based on a dynamic that no longer exists. Once that energy shifts, they don't dwell on the past the way men do. They move on to what feels better, more aligned with their current needs or desires. It's not always malicious, it's instinctive. This reality is what makes a man's emotional downfall so severe. He believes her love was forever because that's how he gives love, through thick and thin, ride or die. So when she detaches, it feels like betrayal, but it's not betrayal, it's biology. Women love based on emotional safety and perceived value. If you stop being the man she once admired, her instincts tell her to detach before she gets stuck in something unfulfilling. She won't always communicate this openly because often she doesn't even understand it herself. She'll say she's just not feeling it anymore. or that something's changed, and she's right. Your energy changed, your presence shifted, your purpose faded, and her love followed. Men must understand that female love is dynamic, not static. It responds to leadership, confidence, strength, and mystery. It thrives when she looks up to you, when she feels inspired by your presence, when she sees that you're on a path she wants to be part of. But once she senses weakness, insecurity, neediness, or emotional dependency, her feminine core begins to recoil. She may stay physically, but emotionally she's already gone, and when that happens, trying to fix it through validation, gifts, or begging only makes it worse. She needs to feel your masculine frame again, not your emotional desperation. So if a man wants to be loved by a woman in the long term, he must understand what her love actually depends on. He must accept that her love has conditions, unspoken, but very real, and those conditions are not rooted in who you were at the beginning, but in who you continue to be. One of the biggest mistakes men make in relationships is taking a woman's words at face value without looking at her actions. Women are complex communicators. While men tend to be more direct and say what they mean, women often speak through emotional language, hints, or coded expressions. This is not because they are dishonest by nature, but because their communication is often designed to maintain harmony, protect their image, or test emotional awareness. As a result, what a woman says and what she actually means, or what she's truly feeling, can be two very different things. If you don't understand this dynamic, you'll constantly find yourself confused, misled, or even manipulated without realizing it. When a woman says she wants a nice guy, most men interpret that literally. They think being agreeable, accommodating, and emotionally available will make them more attractive. But in reality, many women say they want a nice guy, yet consistently choose the man who is firm, dominant, emotionally in control, and unapologetically confident. Why? Because what she says she wants is filtered through social expectations. What sounds good, what feels safe to admit. But what she actually responds to is based on primal attraction. Women may say they value sensitivity, but time and time again, they are drawn to the man who challenges them, who stands his ground, and who doesn't fear walking away. This disconnect between words and actions can also show up in conflict. A woman might say, "I just want honesty." But when you give her the raw truth, she reacts emotionally, becomes defensive, or punishes you for being blunt. So the man in confusion starts censoring himself, thinking that honesty equals rejection. But the issue isn't the truth, it's how the truth is delivered. Women often want truth wrapped in emotional intelligence. They want strength, but with tact. They want honesty, but not at the cost of feeling unsafe. And when you fail to read between the lines, you fall into a trap, believing that her words are always the full story when they are often only part of it. Another place this shows up is in her expressions of independence. A woman might say, "I don't need a man," or "I can do everything on my own." She may even pride herself on being self-sufficient, and in many ways she is. But deep down, most women still desire to feel protected, led, and emotionally anchored by a masculine presence. These declarations of independence are not lies, they're defenses. They're built from past hurt, disappointments, or a desire to avoid vulnerability. So when a man hears this and steps back entirely, thinking she doesn't want leadership or guidance, he misinterprets her emotional armor as her true desire. The truth is, women often say things to protect themselves, not to express their deepest wants. What she really wants is a man who can hear her strength but still offer his own. Women also use words to test you. She may say something provocative, dismissive, or emotionally charged, not because she believes it fully, but because she wants to see how you'll respond. If you react emotionally, get defensive, or try too hard to prove yourself, she may lose respect. But if you stay calm, assertive, and grounded, she feels your masculine presence and gains trust. This is why arguing with a woman based solely on logic usually fails. She's not always trying to debate you. She's testing your frame. She wants to feel that you won't be rattled, that your emotions are not easily swayed, and that you won't crumble under pressure. If you don't recognize this, you'll keep losing battles you didn't even need to fight. Even in moments of affection, there's often a disconnect between what is said and what is meant. A woman might say, "I'm fine," when she's not. She might say, "Do whatever you want," when she actually wants you to show leadership. She may tell you she doesn't mind something, only to become cold or withdrawn later. This kind of indirect communication is not necessarily manipulation. It's a product of emotional nuance. But if you take everything at surface level, you miss the deeper emotional current running underneath her words. You start reacting to the noise instead of tuning into the signal. And once that happens, your ability to lead dynamic disappears. To truly understand a woman, you must observe her behavior, not just her language. Look at how she treats you when you're on your purpose. Watch how her tone changes when you stand your ground. Notice whether her actions match her promises. If she says she respects you but constantly crosses boundaries, it's the actions that tell the truth. If she says she loves you but her energy pulls away when you show vulnerability, again, it's the actions that matter. Words are easy to say. Actions take emotional investment. Men who ignore this truth end up confused, emotionally drained, and constantly second-guessing themselves. They chase her words instead of leading with presence. They try to fix problems she never asked them to fix. They try to be the man she described rather than the man she actually desires. And in the end, they lose her respect, her attraction, and often the relationship itself. Understanding that a woman's words are not always a direct reflection of her intentions is not cynicism, it's wisdom. It allows you to read her more clearly, respond more powerfully, and lead more effectively. In today's world, social media has become a dominant force in shaping how women see themselves, how they value attention, and how they engage in relationships. What many men still don't realize is how profoundly social media has altered the psychology of modern women. We are living in an age where validation is available at the tap of a screen. A single selfie can generate hundreds or even thousands of likes, comments, and private messages from men all around the world. This kind of constant external affirmation creates a distorted sense of self, worth, and expectations, especially for women who rely heavily on that attention to feel valuable or attractive. It's not always obvious, but the influence runs deep. Social media platforms have turned everyday women into micro-celebrities. Even women with a modest following can receive more daily validation than most men will ever experience in a lifetime. This creates a psychological imbalance. When a woman posts a picture and receives instant approval from dozens of men, she begins to associate her worth with that attention. It becomes a drug. Dopamine hits from digital applause, and just like any drug, the more she gets it, the more she craves it. Over time, this external validation can replace the need for genuine emotional intimacy or commitment. Why settle for one man's attention when you can get an endless stream of compliments from strangers online? This has changed the dynamics of modern relationships. Women who are constantly bombarded with attention online are less likely to value the presence and consistency of a good man. If she's upset with you, she doesn't have to reflect, communicate, or resolve things maturely. All she has to do is open her inbox, and there's someone telling her she's beautiful, asking her out, or offering to treat her better than you do. That access to alternative options, whether she acts on it or not, alters her behavior. It gives her a sense of power, a feeling of superiority, and sometimes an unrealistic belief that there's always something better out there. Social media also encourages performance over authenticity. Women are constantly observing what other women are doing, what they're wearing, how they're posing, what kind of lifestyle they're showcasing. This comparison game creates pressure to maintain a certain image. That image is often curated, filtered, and far removed from reality. But if a woman is more invested in her digital persona than her real-life character, she starts to prioritize how things look over how things are. A relationship becomes more about aesthetic compatibility and public display than private depth and emotional growth. A man might think everything is fine, but behind the scenes, she's measuring the relationship against what she sees online. If it doesn't match up with the fantasy she sees on her feed, she begins to withdraw emotionally. Another dangerous impact is the rise of the attention economy. Social media makes women feel that their value is directly tied to how many eyes are on them, and the more attention she receives, the harder it becomes to feel satisfied with just one man's admiration. You could be loyal, supportive, and devoted, but if she's conditioned to seek the thrill of public approval, your quiet presence may start to feel invisible. She's no longer looking for connection. She's looking for stimulation. And men who don't understand this shift keep trying to win her over with logic, kindness, or sacrifice, not realizing that her addiction to attention has already made her emotionally unavailable in a deeper sense. Furthermore, social media breeds insecurity disguised as confidence. Many women appear empowered online, posting provocative photos, making bold statements, projecting self-love. But underneath the surface, a lot of it is rooted in insecurity. The more she needs to be seen, praised, and pursued by strangers, the less stable her internal self-worth likely is. This is why many women who thrive online often struggle in real-life relationships. They are used to being worshipped, not challenged. They crave admiration, not accountability. And when a man shows up with standards, boundaries, and masculine energy that doesn't cater to her ego, she may interpret that as arrogance or emotional coldness, when in reality, it's just a man who sees beyond the performance. Men must understand that social media has fundamentally changed the playing field. You're not just competing with other men in her city. You are competing with men across the world, athletes, influencers, executives, all dropping compliments, DMs, and offers without ever having to meet her in real life. This creates unrealistic expectations and inflates her perceived options. And if she's not grounded, mature, and self-aware, she may begin to believe that your value as a man should be measured against the fantasy she sees online. Your real, imperfect, grounded presence starts to feel less exciting next to the illusion of constant attention and digital flattery. This doesn't mean all women are slaves to social media or incapable of genuine connection, but it does mean that men need to be aware of how deeply this digital environment affects female psychology. If she's constantly seeking external validation, lacks emotional depth, or can't go a day without performing for the internet, she's likely not in a place where she can nurture a healthy, grounded relationship. And if you ignore this truth, you'll end up trying to build something real with someone who's too distracted chasing shadows on a screen. There's a brutal truth about modern relationships that many men either don't see or refuse to accept. When a woman loses respect for you, the relationship is already over in her mind, even if she's still physically present. Respect is the foundation of a woman's love. Without it, her admiration fades, her attraction dies, and her desire to stay loyal diminishes. Most men think love alone is enough to keep a relationship alive, but they fail to understand that for women, love is not separate from respect, it's built on it. The moment she no longer respects you as a man, everything begins to change, and often it's not loud or obvious. It's subtle, gradual, and deeply destructive. When a woman respects you, she follows your lead willingly. She listens to your perspective, she values your opinion, and she looks to you for direction and strength. But when she begins to see you as weak, indecisive, overly emotional, or inconsistent in your words and actions, that respect begins to erode. At first, it might just be a sarcastic tone, an eye roll, or a dismissive comment. You might brush it off, thinking it's nothing, but those small signs are the beginning of a deeper shift. She's testing you, whether consciously or not, to see if you'll reclaim your frame or fall further into passivity. If you fail those tests repeatedly, she no longer sees you as the man she once admired, and once that shift happens, she starts emotionally detaching. This detachment doesn't always come with a breakup. Many women will stay in the relationship even after the respect is gone, especially if there are financial ties, children involved, or social pressures. But emotionally, they've already checked out. They stop investing, stop nurturing, stop trying. The intimacy fades, the warmth disappears, and everything starts to feel transactional. She might still go through the motions, cooking meals, showing up to events, sleeping in the same bed, but her heart is no longer in it. And the man, unaware of the loss of respect, keeps trying to win her back with flowers, favors, or pleading words, not realizing that what she needed was his strength, not his submission. Respect is not about dominance or control, it's about being a man of your word, having a clear mission, setting boundaries, and refusing to be swayed by manipulation or emotional games. Women are deeply intuitive, and they notice when a man starts compromising his values just to keep the peace. At first, she may test those boundaries softly. She'll challenge your opinions, question your decisions, or create emotional tension to see how you respond. If you hold your ground calmly and assertively, she respects you more. If you fold, apologize excessively, or beg for approval, she loses interest. Not because she's cruel, but because you've shown her that you can't lead or protect, not even yourself. Many men were never taught this growing up. They were told to be nice, accommodating, and emotionally available at all times. But women don't respect a man who abandons his backbone just to be liked. They respect a man who stands firm even when it's uncomfortable, who isn't afraid to say no, and who doesn't let her emotional storms shake his foundation. When she cries, panics, or lashes out, she's often looking to see if you'll hold steady or break down, and if you collapse every time she's upset, she eventually starts to see you as weak. Once that perception forms, no amount of begging, apologizing, or explaining can bring back the original attraction. It's also important to understand that once respect is gone, women can become cold in ways that shock men. The same woman who once adored you, supported you, and made you feel like a king can now be indifferent, sarcastic, or even cruel. This emotional shift confuses men, and they often make the mistake of trying to reason with her, asking, "What happened to us?" But the answer is usually simple. She stopped seeing you as the man, not because you weren't kind or loyal, but because you became emotionally soft, lost your direction, or started chasing her approval instead of leading the relationship. What makes it worse is that many women won't tell you directly when they've lost respect. They might not even fully understand it themselves. Instead, they'll act out, grow distant, or create unnecessary conflict. And if you're not aware of the root issue, you'll end up reacting to the symptoms instead of addressing the cause. You'll try to fix the surface problems without realizing that the foundation, her respect for you, has already cracked. This is why so many men are blindsided by breakups. They think things were fine, that the relationship just ran its course. But in reality, the woman emotionally left months ago. She was just waiting for the right moment to physically exit. To prevent this, a man must prioritize self-respect above all. He must lead himself first before trying to lead a woman. That means being clear on your values, pursuing your goals relentlessly, and not tolerating disrespect from her or anyone else. When you carry yourself with that kind of integrity and strength, a woman feels it. She doesn't need to be told to respect you. She feels compelled to. She sees that you're not easily swayed, that your validation comes from within, not from her mood or approval. And that is what keeps her emotionally invested, attracted, and loyal over the long term. So if you're a man trying to understand women in today's world, stop listening only to what they say and start observing what they do. Stop trying to win approval through comfort and start earning respect through presence, discipline, and purpose. The truth is, most men suffer not because women are the problem, but because they ignore these dark truths and walk blindly into emotional traps. Once you wake up to these realities, you stop chasing love that's conditional and start commanding the kind of respect that draws real, lasting connection. Not every woman is ready for a man like that, but the ones who will never want anything less.